Shyla. Welcome to the XPAND studio. Welcome to this episode. Welcome to be here. You are always welcome in presence, wherever we are, wherever we go. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me here today. The space feels lovely and I'm excited for our adventure, conversational adventure.
There's no doubt this will be an adventure. You are a person, one of the few people that I'm able to really go deep with in terms of plant medicine or language or like real deep health, not just the physical health that we often express in the Western world, but really going deep into the more internal Eastern ways of perceiving messages, really, or our input. And I really appreciate that in you during any moment we talk, whether it's in person or over social media. And I'm actually really genuinely curious. What brought you to this path? How are you where you are?
This is a good question. For me, I do not perceive a point of origin like I've heard in other people's story that there was a moment or there was a traumatic event or a near-death experience that really woke them up to a realignment or a readjustment of their path. So for me, it doesn't occur in my memory like that. I remember being deeply curious. I think that's the origin of all that has unfolded and all that will continue to unfold. I believe there's always more. So that, I guess, tenacious curiosity has allowed things to continue to deepen. And no matter what concept is, I guess, prompted, there are so many layers.
I really appreciate your humble approach in that response because I really resonate with that in terms of my own journey as a person. But there's so many times that question has been asked for me where I try and create an origin to appease somebody else because that's more often than not how people respond to questions. So for the fact for you to really respond to what was meaningful to you without trying to fit it into any form or box shows a lot about who you are. It really does. And it's beautiful that you're able to blend your perception back to just being, I was curious.
Yeah, I really think that's the essence of it. I've often been asked as well, and why are you the way you are? What led you here? How'd you find this? I don't really have a clear answer other than, it just feels like it was part of the emergence. And yeah.
You have gone to India. You have studied Ayurvedic medicine. You have really gone deep in a part of health that I haven't had a real chance to yet. I really am curious about the Ayurvedic world, and nutrition is probably where I lack the least amount of knowledge in, or however you want to word that. What are some of the main benefits that you feel like people should be incorporating in terms of nutritious value, whether that's food or information? How was that concept, and living in India for as long as you were, or being in India, how has that really developed your perspective on how to be a human being?
What is food, right? So if you want to take it back to the origin, and Ayurveda and yoga are in the same family, sister sciences, we are food for the divine in the creation myth of the Vedas. So that question is also very deep. One of the reasons I fell in love with Ayurveda is because it's almost common sense in a way. When you start it, I feel like it's a lens, right? It's a lens of perceiving how this is all oriented and how to make it more balanced. I think our ultimate goal is to go for harmony. So that seems like the essence of what we're all up to, trying to get more healthy, trying to learn more. We just want to have an overall more harmonic experience. So I perceive us as food for the divine. So therefore, our practice of consuming, right? We're consumers and creators simultaneously. But our practice of consuming on the energetic level should be of service to our highest good and our most integrous self. And, it's always a journey to find that. But I really feel like we're always eating, right? We're eating the sound that's around us. I will bring it back, like you want to talk about food, but digestion is a huge metaphor. And ultimately, that's what it feels like we sort of are, we're a digestive system. And it's not, have you heard that saying? It's not what you eat, or you are what you eat. Mm-hmm. I've heard in Ayurvedic conversation that you aren't what you eat, you are what you assimilate. Mm. So if you think about our vast sensorial being, right, that we're bringing in light to our eyes and information and sounds and smells and, chemicals through our skin and just environmentally, there's just a lot going on. So we're a digestive process, moving towards like an assimilation, and hopefully what we assimilate is meaningful to us, profound, aligned.
How do people become more aware of what they're actually digesting or not digesting? Metaphorically speaking, energetically speaking, really through just information, because even the nutrition that we eat is information being registered in our operating system, essentially. How do people become more aware of this? Because I really resonate with that aspect of our diet is everything we consume.
Meditation. Becoming more sensitive, I suppose. Seems like a byproduct of a lot of the practices we do, like floating, like yoga, like martial arts, probably, just to relate to some of the things that I know you have an affinity for. Do you feel like your journey has been about becoming more sensitive to the subtleties? Would you say that's...
I would believe that, yeah.
So I think it works the same when we talk about how do we become aware of what is being digested and what's not. As you become more aware of the subtleties, right? Like the small ways that you feel deviant from your best feeling. Like, what it feels like when your gut's in harmony, or when you eat something that makes it rumble and ache, or, that saps your energy, or that enlivens you. It could be we have a response to almost everything, and becoming subtly attuned to that response within your body, within your life even, I feel like gives you access to then start to consciously create what you're up to as a consumer.
By create, what do you mean by that?
I guess I'm assuming that everyone wants to fall into a path of like deliberation. Yeah, I don't mean to assume that, but for me, I feel responsible as I've, learned more about life. And I mean, the more I learn, the less I feel like I know, honestly. And the vaster the mystery seems. But
very
I'm assuming that we all catch on to that we're kind of affecting what we do affects us, how we feel is affecting others. And once you wake up to the responsibility of just that reciprocity, that's inevitable. I feel that for myself, at least, I want to be deliberate in that process of, consuming and creating. How I asked you when I got here, I'm like, do I feel this particular way to you? And I think you have to check in, right? So I referenced meditation and getting more sensitive and things like that. That allows you those processes where you really can deepen, ground, observe outside of the movement almost, or just orient your perception to a place that allows you to actually feel what's happening.
Do you have any particular practices that help you feel the subtle sensations?
I do attribute a lot of it to meditation. I think I'm generally a little more on the sensitive side of things in a lot of ways. I feel more sensitive to, electric energy. Sometimes I can hear outlets. I'm really affected by the space I'm in, so I'll fidget and move things around until it feels okay. So in general, I would say I'm a little on the sensitive side of things. But practices that have been effective to enhance that, I would say, are really things that are meditative. And I think we think about meditation as there's such an interesting perception of it, right? Like if you've never tried it, what do you think meditation is?
Usually sitting in the dark doing nothing.
In some kind of posture that's,
yeah, for sure.
And yeah, there's value to all those things when you learn about the science of a mudra, or what happens when your spinal column is actually aligned, what happens to consciousness. So there's things like that. But meditation really is a great practice. And I like to talk about this because there's no goal of it, right? And I teach meditation to some of my teenage yoga students, and I'm introducing a lot of them to it for the first time ever. And I always tell them, like, listen, there's not a correct way to do this. As much as, maybe you've tried meditation in your class before and it's been a guided thing, we're just actually going to be in silence. So you have a chance to be with yourself. If your thoughts are chattering, it's totally fine. Your mind is designed to continue to do that. So it's actually not going to stop doing that. It's just a matter of, can you just not respond to all of what's going on in the mechanism of your mind that's job is to sort and to identify and, figure things out. So meditation, goal-less, almost open focus meditation, the dhyana style meditation, for anyone that knows what, there's dharana, which is single pointed focus, and dhyana, which is just open focus. A lot of probably what happens in the flotation tank is the open focus.
Totally.
You're just held by your intention to sit or be still, and it wakes up a lot of the things that, because when we're always in movement, we don't always catch on to how we actually feel. We don't always feel what's going on within us. So I really think that it's about slowing down and getting super present. And
first of all, amazingly well put up until now. What are the benefits of understanding, slowing down to comprehend the subtle sensations? Why should people do that? How does that blend into your actual daily life? What are some of the responses that blossom from that behavior, from those moments?
Mindfulness is such a good mode to be creating your life within. And see, I'm still making the assumption that everyone knows they're a creator.
Well, to add to that, I believe that we recognize that at some point on the path. And we really do. The more we, I say this often, the more mindful we become, the more mindful we become. And the more mindful of how people around you influence you and how your interaction with them influences them deeply, thus, therefore, influencing you in return. It really is an ever-flowing, infinite cycle and system and flow. that, which whatever word encompasses that for people, creation might be a word, mindfulness, becoming a bridge, becoming a chakaruna, whatever language people want to associate with that, it does become a major lesson in recognition when you become more aware of your surroundings. It's very naturally. And myself and you and the people that I hold these kinds of discussions with, people are waking up that it's almost as if there's a blend of time, a moment where the past, the present, and the future literally become one ball of momentary beingness. And within that is where we are able to be mindful, become more mindful, and kind of be within the influence of presence. In return, and me returning it to you, that true principle of reciprocity is potentially presence, and understanding how you're even behaving within the presence.
Absolutely.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah. You know, it's really difficult sometimes to talk about to quantify what is mindfulness. You know, it's a quality, presence. What you said is so powerful. It all kind of comes and converges, that's the right word, but converges in the same moment. And one thing I think that's really important, why it's important to slow down, why it's important to become more sensitive, why it's so amazing that it's happening on a greater scale. Like, people are getting more interested in mindfulness practices, and schools are implementing it, and it's popular, you know. There's hashtags about it.
Keyword.
That's super important, because it's very easy for us to be governed by programs that we didn't choose, and to be within paradigms that were not deliberately selected by us. We're oftentimes playing out things that were already suggested or have been in our ancestry, just just a habituation, right? A long time of the same rhythm. And here we are finding ourselves in this life having a similar experience to our ancestors. So the benefit of becoming mindful is being able to become deliberate. When you find yourself in a pattern and you're like, wow, this is just going to play out, whether I, you know, I think our generation too, I always say this, that we're starting to notice, it's even happening in, you know, epigenetic science, where we're starting to wake up to that. If there's been a rhythm, we can suggest deviance towards a greater potential than where this rhythm is headed, right? If let's talk about a disease process, right? Like, a lot of people will say, oh, I just have predisposition to this. Well, a lot of science is now becoming available that says to us, actually, that may be true, but a lot of what actually happens to you, the genetic expression that you actually undergo, is going to be about your mind, what you believe in your mind.
And how we are currently influencing our cellular division and makeup, and the information that we give our body to feed on and interpret and evolve from or with. This is actually one of the biggest reasons why cold exposure is so important for the body, because it produces healthy cellular division. It gives your body a reason to evolve and adapt rapidly, consistently, under your own will or experiment, if you want to put it. It's not up to an actual life or death situation, but you can put yourselves in scenarios to train your body to truly adapt in a really beautiful fashion, on top of the breathing mechanisms that help alkaline the blood and the body pH levels, and really build this system that pushes further and further away from becoming an ecosystem that can inhabit disease. And that's where it's so crazy when you think about fast food or even coffee. I'm becoming very conscious of this because it's very acidic. So understanding that when I drink a lot of coffee, I really do feel poorer than if I wasn't. I don't even know. You get what I'm trying to say.
I feel you, yeah.
The aspect of really understanding the subtle sensations of what we're consuming on any freaking level, whether it's the music I listen to and helping my cells. They are still undergoing cellular division, even when we're doing things that we might not be wanting to, or might not be the best for the evolution of our freaking character and being, and to reach our pure potential. Potential goes in both directions. It's not just a positive thing. We have potential in each and every direction we move in. And that's a very wild concept. It puts it back into that present moment as well. It's like your freaking choice right here can blossom and shoot in any and every direction. Which way you going? For real. Mindfulness helps you become aware of that. Of that pure presence, of the actual now.
That is so well said. Yeah, that's so well said. Thanks for that. It was visceral. I felt that, and really, it's quite stunning, to have a quality of presence awake in your life. And anyone who practices and values presence kind of knows that it's a blinking sort of thing. That it's just because you practice meditation doesn't mean you're somehow perfectly wide awake to everything and it all falls into place. That's why these things are very much a practice. And as presence becomes a value, which I feel like it is, I hear a lot of sociological conversation, and that's the beauty of having social media, is that we can really see what's being talked about in theme style. Like, what are people talking about? And in a lot of ways, I think presence, at least maybe that's just what I'm noticing, but presence in the way that we interact, presence in the way we conversate, presence in all kinds of things is becoming, I think, a demand. Maybe I'm just hopeful, but...
Well, okay, this is a cool topic. Because I believe you're right. These notions are blossoming up in our awareness more often than not now, especially if you start to interact with certain groups of people. It's just they're shooting up like bamboo freaking trees, one after another. And with that, it becomes how or what will we do with the information? Which direction should we be moving this in? Because there's no doubt, especially with Joe Rogan being a platform now, having 190 million downloads a month on his freaking podcast, which is unbelievably huge, astronomical. The amount of people that are waking up because they're actually being provided with resources and information to wake up to, with, or from, it's beyond any other time period. It's beyond a civilization of a few million people undergoing plant medicine journeys in the pre-Inca Chavin culture, where there was peace for 1,500 years in a set environment, in a community of people. Those are potential in every single continent now, within every state, with the right people coming together and building it for people. Because as we know, our growth and our environments provide the growth and environments for the people around us. You have your own ecosystem that I've only been introduced to. I haven't been able to truly feel and be around the people that you love and that you know. And vice versa, only to certain degrees and extents. We start to blend those together with the pure-heartedness of our being for the para el bien de todos, for the good of all. Heartbeats start to beat a little bit differently. Beauty starts to blossom a little bit differently. It becomes a very collective movement and a very potential movement. You're doing it.
Yeah. I get visuals of like becoming fractalized, right? The seed that becomes the movement, and you see these conscious ideas start fractaling out into larger and larger spheres of influence. And then now we can witness, like you're saying, the level of downloadedness that Joe Rogan Experience has. I hear people talking about it all the time. I have people that I know listen to that, who I know are open to ideas that they would have never been open to, but because there's someone talking about them, giving that permission to explore an idea, it's really, really phenomenal. So we have a responsibility within that, I believe, which is to, that's the thing, is what are we creating? Like you asked, sure, the information, but, and then what? And then what? That then what question is actually ever present. What are we creating? Are we doing it consciously?
Way to bring that back to creating. Because it helps highlight why you would use that word. Because it's clearly meaningful to you under different constructs. Because we are always creating. We're always manifesting. Whether or not we want to believe that's a real thing or not. We are always manifesting something from our presence, from our patterns, from how we think about people. We're making potential solutions or outcomes more realistic than others because of the approach that is happening previous to that moment. To bring this back a few moments, responsibility and discussion. How important is discussion? What does that do for people?
Sometimes not enough.
Beautiful response.
And I'll say that because I've noticed there's a discomfort when we just do the thing in our mind. As anyone who has an embodiment practice would know, the value of doing it versus just discussing it. There's such an important bridge there that can be lost in the, if we overemphasize or over practice the discussion of it, which is very important. But a lot of times there's a lot of ideas that are disembodied from. I hear a lot of people philosophize about these ideas, and then it's like, well, look at your life. That's my practice. These great, huge ideas that are qualities or virtues that we learn about in, the teachings, whether it's from our own like higher wisdom or from something inspiring that we're learning about or in the practice of. A big thing for me is asking myself, am I in a mode of hypocrisy? Is what I know what I do? And I'm always checking in that with that question, because
is what I know what I do,
or am I at least trying, right? Because it's a big job, but that's integrity. That was the word that I remember being in a yoga class that just did something. It just anchored all the energy. I felt a new level of embodiment. It was integrity. And so that's been a contemplation this whole journey. And yeah, I find all the time I'm not doing the things I know better than or that I need to do. But I'd get better and better. And that's like how to boil down my personal life practice is disembed the hypocrisy, become really, awake to is what I know, what I do. And what I know isn't stagnant. So is what I learn. Do I take responsibility for what I learn? So if you have a moment, or that's why, you talked about plant medicine at the beginning. I think there's such a I want to kind of like just maybe put a toe in that water for a second. You go into those immersive experiences. It's not just plant medicine. It could be meditation. It could be a musical journey. It could be like a sexual experience. It could be, I don't know, and somewhere where you're held in nature. It could be all kinds of things. When you have an immersive experience that really is so potent, there's a responsibility in that vastness to then integrate things into our daily life. These moments, meditation shouldn't be separate than our life. Ceremony is a metaphor for our life. You know, when you go in the teepee, they say, this is the metaphor for a perfect day, right? Where you gather around with your family and you have a council, and then all the components of that experience are designated as why it's meaningful. So we have these moments that we relate to that are, I guess, more vast than other moments. Like something mundane is a different feeling to us than something profound. It's in that profundity that I think we gain a craving for more of that. And I think we were discussing this just briefly a while ago, but that every moment is an opportunity for ceremony. Every moment is an opportunity for intention, for mindfulness. I kind of forgot how we got here. That was... You might have to bring us back.
To add, every moment is an opportunity for integrity as well.
Yes.
And...
that's what it was.
Ceremony is a metaphor for life.
Boom.
That is so beautiful. And for me personally, and I hope for anybody listening, it's so freaking beautiful to hear you express words in your own way that resonates so deeply within me. You're literally rewording and rephrasing messages that are often contemplated, pondered, recognized, or shared from me. And that is something so worthy of our passion and love and attention and wholesome beingness with. And this, for some reason, seems to be dating back to the more vulnerable and genuine and open we become with our own person, the better we're able to provide that platform for another person to be open as well. And from there, when we both open in genuine senses, that builds such a unique relationship that undergoes more beauty than we are even able to comprehend. So thank you for real. For real. For real. It's so important. It's so important for people. And I believe that because it's so deeply important for me. And being able to relate with other people in these senses, it seems to be a very common response. Instead of trying to fit into a box and you pretend to be a certain way and me pretend to be a certain way, and then we can communicate in this disassociated, disconnected illusion of ourselves, but what the fuck gets done there? We can feel like we had a good conversation and our judgments were left at the door and whatever. But this is real. This is what meditation, I believe, is. This is what continual mindfulness, meditation during life, should be. Is being able to blend who we genuinely are with another being. It's a present dance. It's a present flow of beautiful reciprocity if both people, mutual partners, are able to be within that principle of reciprocity. And you talked about these potent experiences, sexual, intimate, deep senses of connection, or deep senses of compassion for planet Earth, or the freaking warming hug of Mother Nature, right? During the Dr. Dan episode, he kind of described those as peak experiences. right? And I know you listened to the episode.
That was the word. I was like, yeah, peak experiences. Exactly.
For real.
Yeah.
Plant medicine discussions can be peak experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not peak straight up, but peak straight down or at a diagonal. These things go in different directions.
Or peak. Right.
That's beautiful. But how do we integrate these? That's kind of where this is bringing back into, is how do we begin to integrate these different processes of information that seemingly hold deep amounts of value. The value may be different, but also it's like they're boiling down to similar meanings. And that's like where the freaking minerals are, the molecules that build anything. Everything in here is so similar, yet so different at the same time. The things that make them the same are what intrigue me beyond belief.
The things that make them the same are the things that intrigue you beyond belief.
Beyond belief.
That's so well put. And I'd like to add to that some of the most valuable content comes from teasing out the metaphor, if you will, of anything. Because as you get exposed to microsystems that say, this is the way that governs these people, this is the idea that governs these people, this company is organized like this, this household is run like this. So when you see organizational components, which is exactly what's happening here, right? Molecules we have this organizational experience going on, and when you start paying attention to that, you realize, okay, they do it over here, but they do it like this over here, and it gets done like this over here. But what's actually being done? Look at how each culture prays, for example. It looks a little different. The ritual is a little different, but what it yields, hopefully, is the same type of consciousness. So as we encounter this variety of, as we encounter the variety, the way that we can stay present and inclusive of all of that is by what I've found to be, metaphorical thinking. This is like this is like this is like this is like this. And then, right, as I say that, it's causing this sense of yes, 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 additional. I think that's part of integrity, right? Integrating. I integrate the truth that I found within this moment. I integrate the truth that I witnessed in that church experience. I integrate the lesson in that challenging moment, or in losing that person, or, that word, I'm going to bring you back to that word. Integration is so powerful to think about that. And when we use metaphor, the similarities, right, that you were just speaking about, it's the similarity. And really there's so many ways to say it. When it's being said, can we hear it? No matter how it's being said. So there's another aspect of why mindfulness and deep listening and deep presence is important, because oftentimes our job is to be distilling. And I think that is what the heart does, honestly. Because we do relate on a large level to, there's common ground with every single person. We just get so situated in our personalities and what we wear our beliefs like clothing, right? But there's so much common ground. There's so much of that similarity that it really, if we just get access to the similarity, which is why I said metaphor, right? It's like that's oftentimes how you get through to somebody if you're trying to explain something and say their normal realm of relating to the world happens in a fixed context for the most part. But you want to talk to, say, like a priest about psychedelics. You might liken what you are going to say to something you know that within that context would resonate with them, because we're trying to create the resonance, because that's what feels similar. But what does it feel similar to, right? Like, is it the, it feels familiar when we're resonating.
Familiar.
Yeah.
Huh. Two things. One, as you were explaining all of that, the concept of attachment really popped up, of attaching to how we do things, not what's being done. Attachment to the process instead of the actual response. And whether that's narrow-minded perceiving, I'm not sure. It probably more feels like lack of perspective, because the more perspective we gain, the broader we're able to perceive. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And meditation and world travel and discussion, actual discussion, not me trying to make you believe something that I want you to believe. Actual discussion to build new ground of meaning, which is what discussion is for. Building a world between us that neither one of us will ever be able to access without each other, because you have information that will be incorporated and I will incorporate my own information, and we will go deeper and deeper and deeper into the unknown, hopefully, and find a mutual agreement somewhere or resonance. And so to pull back on that, it's interesting to think about in terms of what we choose to attach to and why and where and how. Usually through suggested reasoning, through society or generational output or input or whichever. That's a completely different discussion. That is a rabbit hole that could go beyond deep in. Something that is really fascinating that I have perceived in my own experience, what's similar in every moment? What is continually present in every moment we are being present or not present in? Feeling. I believe feeling is omnipresent. I believe feeling is the pure bond with present moment that blends past, present, future. I really do believe it is the hone of perception. Not what you're thinking, what's being felt through the process. These seem to be these anchors that can pull your body into your body, pull your consciousness into this being, this vessel, to from there comprehend and contemplate, from there build recognitions, to literally feel differently about something. Because how often do we try and force our mind or body to feel something through positive thinking, or you are strong, whatever example it might be, instead of actually being strong and feeling strong? There's something that if we hit those roots of sensation and blossom our response from there, it just builds this garden and fruitfulness of behavior. And that goes with us wherever we go, our soil, our foundation.
Wow. I want to reciprocate the well-puttedness.
You are seen.
And you're right, everything contains a seed of 1,000 tangents, right? Because it's all, at the essence of it, it's all connected. And I actually have a question based on what you just said. You were talking about feeling, and do you think that we Do you think there's a distinction between feeling and emotion? How I heard you describe feeling would indicate that you, at least to me, how it struck me was that you're talking beyond emotion. And this could just be a semantic question, but can you go into that a little more?
Well, perhaps I believe more and more that they're a blend from one another. That a feeling breeds emotion, that emotion breeds feeling. That feeling breeds pattern of thought, and pattern of thought breeds feeling. But ultimately, what is emotion? It's a feeling of sensation. Whatever cognitive language recognition you put on the sensation is what your emotion is. But actually delving deeper into what's being felt should actually breed and blossom the pure response from that. And I really do believe more and more that the more we feel the actual feeling or emotion, the better we will understand it in terms of us being able to see the full presentation of something rather than seeing the first scene and then cognitively picturing how the story's going to go. If you can actually, because there's loopholes and everything, if you can be present through the full presentation of something, you're much better able to comprehend the actual roots of emotion, of anything, which I really do believe is feeling.
Yeah, they're so almost indistinguishable. What would you call it when our mind is getting involved? So, oftentimes there's something deeper, right? We started this whole conversation out about the deeper layers and the curiosity. So being curious within a sensation. Oftentimes we say we're angry. What I've noticed, at least when I ask, what is underneath this? What is this? What is this actual feeling? There's actually a feeling of like sadness or disappointment. But then the emotion that I might be stopped at is anger. So I liked what you said when you talked about it, revealing the purest form. I think you said it somehow similar to that.
Well, it's almost as if we try and interpret them, they become blocks. And of course, we have to interpret it to some degree, but from my personal experience, those interpretations go deeper and deeper the more you do it, the more you're within it. So even recently, I've been recognizing these blocks into deepening my perspective into the present moment. And usually that comes with me trying to associate something experiencing into something that's in memory or something that is happening and being downloaded, and or like if I'm in a float tank, me wanting to get out and write it down, or can't wait to share this with somebody, or something along those lines that can very much pull us out. So I'm really seeing these blocks, and it seems like us putting language on the experience is a different form of block.
I would definitely agree.
Just gotta literally be present. Just feel. That's what it feels like. Just being able to feel. That doesn't mean you're weak. Doesn't mean that our generation is feeling too much or whatever. We're now able to delve deeper into the body-mind connection because of all of the generations previous to now. And because we don't have to worry as much about having a roof over our heads or these survival mechanisms that have overwhelmed civilization for thousands of years. Not that it doesn't still exist, because I would be absolutely oblivious if I didn't recognize that. But the numbers of people that worry about those less and less is it's wild, and it provides us with an opportunity to actually think about stuff, which is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You get these steps and these stages in conscious evolution, physical and metaphysical, and it breeds the next layer. We're just at a point now where we can actually meditate and waste time or spend time doing things outside of working in the mill or whatever it may be. That's the evolution.
What do you think? I've heard speculatively that as that evolutionary thread continues and we are the necessity of us doing sort of laborious things that take us, a lot of time, as that becomes automated, right? There's a suggestion that the machines are kind of doing the things that we've had to spend our man hours doing. What do you think that's going to do to consciousness when we're more free?
So I do my best not to engage in these kinds of discussions, but this is pretty cool because of who's asking it. And that matters more than we believe, I think, or more than we recognize. And on the platform that this is happening in, right? To be remarkably genuine here, I worry about the lack of awareness that we may hold for the future outcome of 5G or incorporating more technology and waves into the very natural ecosystem of planet Earth, how that will influence the rest of our planetary existence, not just now, but in the future. I worry about people doing things, unfortunately, for intentions that may not align with para el bien de todos, and doing things for money without the care of the actual safety of humanity. And also, I believe that could be a good thing, because I don't know how much anything is bad. Because maybe that's necessary for us to show people what we should be doing. Everything is this weird pinball machine where we're bouncing off human consciousness to find a harmonious ground. I also wonder how beneficial it'll be to have these automated systems operating our day-to-day needs that we don't need to spend time on anymore. So I have become more busy this year than any other time period before. Therefore, the need to be more organized has become more important than ever before. It's like the need met the necessity, or the necessity met the need, and the ability was born from that. And so if I don't have to think about posting things every Tuesday, I can actually work on different things. If we can delegate these mundane aspects, it goes back to responsibility and opportunity. What will we do with that gained free time or that newly found available time? Where do we go from there? Do we waste it on social media? Do we apply it in meditation? That's where it's like this very profound play right now of real potential in each and every direction. It's wild.
Wow.
It's just a perspective, right?
Yeah. It's speculative too, as we see automation start to take over, things that we have had to manually do repetitively. It's so awesome that we have the ability to become more and more and more efficient. And hopefully, as this continues, it frees us to be able to feel more, because when we feel what's deeply happening, I think we crave organizing it in a good way. And not the right way, right? But a good way. And that has a feeling to it. That feels good. This world feels good. It feels good what's happening and emerging on planet Earth. Feels maybe one day we'll get to the point where it feels really good to read the news.
That is a beautiful imaginatory scenario, it feels like. But it may actually become a thing. The more podcasts happen, the more other forms of media come out. First of all, this kind of blew me away this week. It really came to my recognition that we are a form of media. Like XPAND is a form of media. And I've never really comprehended that until recently. Also, I think the beginning of anything, you're naturally trying to figure out, should I be doing this? Is this working? Should we pull back? What's really happening? And we've kind of found a groove where it's like we're kind of moving with a weekly upload base, and it's breeding this brand new sense of awareness on what we're even doing. And people like you who pay attention and who listen and who send me beautiful messages and videos on support and encouragement and these downloads that you've received and senses of appreciation, all of that matters. It all matters. That's probably why I use the word we more often than I, because we are building this. Your participation is just as important as any participation from Jacob or I. And it's so important to recognize that and to embed that into how you perceive the world around you. It broadens it. It makes it more relatable. It makes it more of a communal existence and movement. Without anybody listening, what the fuck would we be doing here? Besides having a beautiful moment with each other. So it's so beautiful how ripples build ripples, and these forms can literally morph themselves. Where do you feel like we're going as a planetary species? What do you feel like? I don't even talk about this kind of stuff.
This is the big wonder, because it's all happening. Everything's awakening, and, yet tragedy still exists, and pillaging the earth still exists, and communities of conscious people that are relating to each other, and, the context to being alive in this form that's arising, and so is more destruction, and it's all happening. And so when you talk about that moment of infinite potential, like, where do we go from here? I feel like it's so visceral, because that question, what? I don't know. I suppose we could imagine any outcome. You told me a samurai practice the other day, and I've been thinking about it, that, and you can probably articulate it in a far better way. So would you do that really quick? Because I want to say something about it, but I feel like you can.
Word. Okay. I don't think I've shared this yet on this platform, which is one of my favorite things to share with people. So thank you for the opportunity.
So powerful, and it really goes back to this question that was just asked.
So, the samurai would meditate their death every morning in each and every way possible or imaginable. Being beheaded, having their intestines poured out of their body, falling off of a cliff, having their throats slit, so that they would be able to be in battle with the ability to look their opponent in the eye, their enemy in the eye, and feel there is not a single thing that you could do to me that I have not already done to myself. This powerfully embedded piece of perspective and internal awareness and grounded ability in being.
So, the contemplation of the infinite potentials that could unfold as we navigate this human adventure, this planetary adventure. right? It could go any way. And I'm even going to offer that if I were doing that practice as a samurai, which in some way we really are, like, again, that's a metaphorical practice. I would also hold space for that. It could be really beautiful. It could be really peaceful. It could feel different than all the horrific things I could imagine. It could be anything, right? So that's kind of how I feel about this. How is this whole thing going to unfold? I tend to be more on the radically optimistic side of things because I assume that getting a whiff of harmony and getting a whiff of what it feels like to be in a like highly, beautifully organized, shared intention of goodness, that is craveable, I think, by everybody. Maybe not everyone, I would hope. I think that our heart is a magnet, right? And that it really feels magnetized towards something harmonic.
Buried deep down, perhaps.
Yeah.
Within some people.
Yeah, that's okay. It's there. That's the thing, is I want to trust that it's there, because there's all kinds of technologies to, to exfoliate ourselves down to that, to getting access to that. Floating is one, it's like, that is such a valuable practice. And for anyone who's never tried it, it is absolutely worth trying. And not just once, but maybe 3 times. Give it 3 times, because it's so layered, right? And there's the acquaintance session at first, and then the next one, you're like, okay, I felt this is a little bit more familiar, and I'm not gonna die. It's gonna be okay. It ends. It does end. And then again and again and again and again, and so on and so forth. It's layered, and the layers get peeled back, and we gain more insight into the depth. So I think technologies like floating, MDMA therapy, things that are emerging, powerful tools, right? I think there is the need for sophisticated tools to help people get access to those parts that will allow for the world to harmonize. And I see these technologies, I'm going to call everything a technology, right? Your foot is a technology. And it's not just float tanks and, psychedelics, but it's all a technology. We're a technology. As the technology is required to become more sophisticated, because what we're up to is kind of serious, but it's also not serious at all. But we all care for the generations ahead of us. So how it goes is something that, we should take to thinking about. There were times when our actions depended on how it would affect 7 generations moving forward. That ripple effect, how is this going to cause harmony far into the future?
Divine food.
I'm also hopeful, though. I just keep getting this image because someone was talking about these fire bugs or something. There's some kind of light bug, I think, in a forest. And I haven't heard of this, but I just still have the visual in my head. But they'll be flashing at different intervals, and eventually it starts becoming the same exact flash. So they synchronize eventually. And you can see that in water, right? If there's many different echo waves going out, eventually it comes together. And birds do this. There seems to be an organizational force or a creative intelligence that will eventually organize all of this to something harmonic.
I've also heard that if you look a loved one in their eyes, that your heartbeats will sync up.
Same concept, right? Yes. So knowing that that's likely, because we see many examples of it being inevitable or it being potential, it gives me hope, right? That out of all the things that could happen as the story unfolds, that it will be good and harmonic.
If not now, at some point.
Maybe it will just be too. There's that just pure,
word.
just acceptance of
Word.
like maybe it doesn't have to land anywhere particular. Maybe it just stays super open. I think that's a part of the big work here too, is just a lot of parts of us can relax in any situation when we invite acceptance.
So beautifully well put. A few things that popped up. Maybe we fear the idea more than the actual result. A lot of people are fearing the potential idea of a negative response to something, when in reality, in actuality, even if the future is similar to that fear, it probably won't ever be identical to what you are fearing. Therefore, there's this weird disconnect in our projections, potential even positive ones, right? But that hope, that heartbeat, that faith is probably a much healthier compass or flashlight to go off of than many other options. And maybe that's pragmatism at its finest. My buddy Eric Godzi talks about pragmatism a lot, like pragmatic ways of using information. What's useful, what's not. If it's not, then we don't need it. And just kind of moving forward from there, because we can get lost in the abundance of potential or the infinite amount of thoughts or feelings that can come, or fears or worries. And something that I wanted to kind of bring up at some point is, how do you feel when we start to slow down our ability to process the information and that feeling overwhelming for people? Because that's a hugely common experience. How do people deal with that? I've dealt with it in multiple different time periods in my life.
Are you asking about the confrontation that as things slow down, how it can feel confrontational?
More so overwhelming.
Overwhelming. As it slows down, or that it's not slow? What are you asking?
Good distinction. This is cool. As your awareness slows down for you to perceive things moving faster than you may have realized.
The breath. I know of nothing simpler. That shit's powerful. And guess what? It's always available too. So how is cold water, how does it become tolerable as you start getting into it more deeply? Your breath, right?
Word.
Which integrates the intensity of sensation. So yeah, to answer that really simply, I think we just got to breathe. I mean that literally, but also just trust that it's like, it's all breathing, right? It expands and it contracts, and that's always happening. Our awareness gets big and then it shrinks. We have a revelation, and then for some reason everything seems concealed to us, and like everything breathes. And I think when we accept that it's going to continue to do so, it situates us in a position where we're like, okay, it's fine. Like it feels like everything's contracting right now, but I trust, having observed that this is a rhythm, that it's all breathing in and out. It's all happening. How it is happening in this relative moment is going to be different than how it's happening, or how it feels, I guess, right? So anytime we feel overwhelmed, our breath is our best friend.
Being buoyant in the ebb and flow of that process. Beautiful. Thank you.
Can't control it. I mean, as organized as you want to make your day-to-day life, as compartmentalized as you want to orient the things you've learned about that, make up reality, you can't control the process, right? Like, I think we can potentially cause certain levels of directionality in a moment. But the overall thing, like when you really realize there's so much happening beyond me, and it is overwhelming, but it's also permissive. Just coming to a place of acceptance too. I think that's a really, really powerful, what do we want to call it? How much do we surrender and how much do we engage? Right? That contemplation is how do we orient ourselves in this, knowing that, part of our journey here is letting a lot of things go constantly. And also how vital it is to stay engaged. And there's almost a flow state of doing those two things simultaneously. Yeah, that's always another question to, really cause presence. It's what's a good level of surrender and engagement, and how do we do those things at the same time? Sometimes I imagine I'm behind like some control room and I'm just trying to like turn up all the knobs and just get the right levels of all the things, And sometimes you just got to sit back and you're like, yep, this is the temperature in here and it smells like this. And I guess that's what music is playing. And so I don't know, just knowing how to have grace in the opposing, the oppositional.
Grace. Man, grace. For real. That beautifully sums it up.
Maybe that's the bigger prayer, that however this goes, may it be graceful. However this journey of the human unfolding, may it be graceful.
Wow, there's something really potent in that. Because there's still the feeling of sensation passing through, but without gripping or attaching to the flow of the process. So you're still within the experiential, nutritious sense of the experience without getting too bonded or caught up in it. Because we can only digest and download so much. That's probably something that I deal with a lot internally, is good or bad, I don't know. It's helpful and beneficial in many, many moments, but the worry that I'll potentially miss an important download or lesson in some moment or experience. So I'm very patient with a lot of things because of that. I really do my best to fully digest something as much as possible. And a lot of people might view that as a form of weakness, or because it's taken 5 years to build the foundation for XPAND, and we're about to really relaunch our brand from a completely different approach. And it's internally felt like it's taken over 5 years. But now that process has been feeling more and more complete and ready to blossom, there's something really beautiful in that process as well. And if that was bypassed, there would be a lot of important lessons and recognitions, I believe, that would be very helpful in the future. If I just try and skip to level 4 without walking up the stairs or building the proper foundation on each single layer, what kind of detriment is that going to build for future me, for future organization, for the good of all? if I'm trying to be selfish to bypass some shit, like, what is the process of your intention? What's your purpose here? To make a lot of money or to build something that moves smooth and efficiently? There's a lot to it.
Yeah. It's really, really important to take your time. And I say that to myself as well, because there's things I blast through just out of necessity, or there's cravings I have for just skipping a bunch of stuff, like, I just want to get to this other level. And so as you've done this process, have you had anxiety about like, oh, it's taking too long, or
Comes in waves for sure.
But at this point, it sounds like it's wisdom. It's landed in a place of, there has been a very deliberate reason for this pace, this organic process, allowing it to take as long as it needs to take.
It's me raising my hand to add something. So, thank you. And I believe it's very important to delve deeper into the knowing of your own process, because there's a lot of pieces of information that can influence your behavior, whether it's a family member, a parent, an investor, somebody who you look up to that's supporting your movement, that we can get lost in what they say, dissolve ourselves, disassociate ourselves from our deeper knowing of our own process and path, try and fulfill their desires, their wishes, instead of incorporating the words they are choosing into our platform when necessary. Just because somebody says something does not mean that it is the proper time for that piece of information to be added. And it might be some information that is so beyond important. And more often than not, they're probably saying out of the goodness of their heart to help you and support you. Believe that, have faith in that, and blend it, integrate it, digest it when it's proper. Because only you know that.
I think we also sometimes, I know I'll speak for myself, I feel like I am getting ready to get ready to get ready. And it never ends. So I remember a very significant moment, having been in that mode of, no, this is going to happen in perfect timing, and I do not want to rush it, and I'm definitely not ready to take the next step, and just knowing that, but having an external pressure say, when are you going to do this or that? Or it was actually one of my first and most profound yoga teachers. I'd gone through some yoga teacher training and some deep immersions and whatnot, and the humility you gain from, walking into a practice that you realize is perennial and that is never you're never going to know all of it. You can't memorize the knowledge of yoga or martial arts or life. So having that humility and knowing, this is going to take some time. I had that teacher ask me to substitute teach her class for her, which was my source of profundity every single week. It was the context I went to that blew my mind on a consistent basis. Like, wow, very nutrient dense yoga class. She's like, will you sit in my seat? I definitely did not feel ready to do the yes to that question. But she said to me, I know you're not going to take your own training wheels off, so I'm going to do it for you. So her request for me to grow into something I didn't feel ready to at that time actually put this evolutionary pressure on me that really stimulated some powerful contemplation, obviously a lot of nerves. Part of me that was wondering, like, well, should I just listen to the part of me that's telling me I'm not ready? Or should I, listen to the call, the request of someone I believe to be very wise and say yes, and then trust that it's going to organize itself. So I always say, I'm like, the universe organizes itself around our radical yes, our affirmation. The universe organizes itself around our affirmation. So oftentimes I think it's important to be fully present in your digestive process and take things organically. But also, there is value to, maybe taking steps when you don't feel ready.
But the opportunity presenting itself alone may have been a message that you were more ready than you ever perceived yourself to be. This is perhaps why following our intuition and ebb and flowing with the process and the flow of the universal alignment of cosmic organization and existence without forcing but blending and moving with may be more important than we can even comprehend. If you were think about I think about this all the freaking time. The energy of your being. Think about if months before that opportunity popped up, you were trying to force yourself into being her substitute teacher. You were trying to push this into place. The energy of your body produces a completely different result, which therefore creates the experience to be embedded in that trail. Now that you were actually able to absorb and build the proper attributes and being to be able to be in that position the way that you should deeply be, the opportunity was presented. This, I believe, is more important than we even know. Not forcing things, but being in that push and that pull, that push and that pull back, and feeling the weight of resistance and moving as possibly graceful as we can. That's what Taoism to me is. That's what being within the flow of nature actually means to me, is feeling that pressure and resistance. And that doesn't mean I'm afraid of it. I just feel it may not be ready yet. I'll build some other things, so I'm patiently fucking waiting over here. I'll push, I'll feel it. No, okay, we're good. And then boom, this is set, and this thing like opens. This like portal or bridge or door is like, oh, word, okay, we're ready. Sometimes people got to open those doors for us, which is without a doubt not a problem.
So perceiving all the potentials and people's potentials, right, gives us a responsibility to invite out parts of each other. So when we're out and about and we're doing something super mundane, such as checking out at the co-op or the grocery store or the gas station or something, and, chances are you can notice things about other people. Giving someone an invitation, like, come out with that sparkly self that you have hiding in there that, and sometimes it's more dramatic than that, but that's an example of how we all can do that for each other on a very, micro basis. Really just like call forth invite forth the best of each other. Thank you for being that for so many people. I see that is something that's really present, especially as you have guests on your show. I've complimented you on this before, but there's a very beautiful quality to your listening and how you navigate conversations. And it's a really big blessing to be here and to have any conversation with you. So,
Shyla, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your ability to perceive that and relay your feelings onward and share them and hold ground while doing so. Like, you feel what you share. And perhaps that's one of the best filters we can build in ourselves, is filtering through what we actually believe or feel or what's genuine or meaningful, instead of saying things because they can be said. I believe we'll choose different words when they come more from a heart-grounded center and an ability to respect and resonate with what we're even speaking with or to. And undeniably so, The feelings are so beyond mutual. Thank you for navigating our discussion with me. That was an incredible hour and a half.
Timeless.
Timeless.
Wow.
Beyond grateful for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. There's not enough diversity in words to, convey that feeling, but really, really heartfelt gratitude and recognition. So keep doing it because it's causing ripples.
You too.
Yeah.
You cause ripples to everything you do. Every word you choose is meaningful and intentful and purposeful. And people feel that, whether or not they consciously recognize it. Their presence, their body, their soul, their being, their spirit resonates with that. And it's as if we're speaking to the greater good of who we are as people. And you do that profoundly well. Much, much love. You're welcome back here anytime.
There's so many things I want to talk to you about.
And we shall engage in more discussions.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.